All right, it is preparing to live stream. I do have to say that I'm a little bummed Skip's not here because he usually helps me load pipes, and I can load my own pipes, but let me see. Okay, I think I need to mute that one.
What is he doing right now? I saw he's on a boat, but
he is scanning the ocean floors on a boat off of these. Here, let me pause this. Because he usually helps me load pipes. See, this is my mute. There we go. All right.
oh, hey, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. So, Skip was Navy for 20 years, and he is currently offshore in Alaska. I always like to, just because I think it's funny, I tell people, it's top secret, I can't tell you or I'll have to shoot you. But he thinks that's mean to say. But he basically has a lot of knowledge of the techie stuff, like scanning the ocean floor. And they basically collect the data of the topographical map stuff for the ocean floor and stuff that's below the surface up to like, I don't know, like 50 meters or something. And they sell that to various companies like oil and whatever the company needs that. So we've got Donald and Reed Bender Bud in the house, who shares amazing music. So hi everybody, I'm the piping artist Steph, and this is the Steph and Skip Kane channel. And I have reached out to several members in the community to try to get to know more of our members of our community. And I think Curtis is absolutely hilarious in how factual like he is. This is how I feel, this is what's going on. And he just spits out truths and it cracks me up. And I don't always 100,000% agree with anyone, but
Why not?
What?
Why not?
Well, I probably should in this day and age. Dingus is in the house, and Pipe Monkey Gary, hello, hello. So before we begin our interview, which is sure to be a hoot and possibly really piss off some people, I want to do a couple of shout outs. Smoking Dan, he has 305 subscribers, and you guys, he's in Wales, I believe. And he's absolutely a hoot to watch. He's great, he's fun. He watches a lot of people. He's been in the YTPC as a lurker for a long time, has been making videos for a while. So you guys need to go sub Smoking Dan. Ray. I love this kid. I call everybody under 40 kid now. Ray only has 207 subscribers. After this video, I'm going to put the links for these 3 channels underneath in the basement. And of course, who is already in the house, Pipe Monkey Gary. I adore this guy. I feel like he's a kindred spirit and he's funny. He laughs at everything and I tend to laugh at everything too. So you guys go subscribe to those 3 channels. They're absolutely hilarious. Armchair Boris is in the house and he's watching sports. He's watching football. Go! And his Finland team is playing today. So everybody say, go Eagle Owls for Boris. Armchair Ed is in the house and Dingus McSwine II. All right, so Professor Walker. We have
Kurt.
First, I know Curtis, but Professor Walker, because you're my professor, we can learn some stuff or two even from our students, even if they're teenagers. I've learned a lot. As a community, I think the YTPC is very diverse. And I don't think a lot of us would have even found each other had it not been for pipes and tobaccos. But I want to go ahead and ask you a few questions, and maybe we'll have some chat. We'll have some people in the YouTube chat give us some questions. Hobbiton, Kevin, welcome in. So without further ado, this is Professor Curtis Walker. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today.
Oh, thank you for having me. That was really cool.
Thanks. I don't feel like I'm very cool, but you know, I don't know. I guess the new word for cool is based. So my kids laugh at me when I say it now. So anytime they say something that's, cool, I'm like, that's bass. They just look at me and start laughing. So bass.
Well, I'm gonna have to do that because that will upset my daughter. My daughter does not like it when at all. She's 17, and that really bothers her if her parents do anything that she thinks is outside the little. She has this like painted in that box, and if
Right, right.
anything outside of that, she's like, no, no. We talked about my wife dyeing her hair, and that was like, no, no. I'm like, why? Purple would be great for your mom. No.
That's so funny. So next time she says something that you agree with, just go bass and then leave it and see how she reacts. I think it's
I'm gonna do
awesome.
that. I'm gonna do that this morning.
Nice, nice. I love it when my when my teens they're just all awesome. And we have one that's not a teen anymore. He's 21 now. But I love it when they send me memes and I'm like asking them, well, what does this mean? And they're like, that was like 2 weeks ago, Mom. We're not gonna explain it to you now. Like 2 weeks ago was nothing. Try 20 years ago, bro.
Mine
I'm
do the
like,
same thing where they're like, my daughter will be like, that's an old meme. That's a dead meme. I'm like, whatever. If it's funny, it's funny.
yeah, if it's funny, it should stand the test of time. That's what I gotta say. Which is why I still watch Andrew Dice Clay. All
It's a
right,
guilty pleasure.
let's get into the interview.
Okay.
Let me, if I can read my own handwriting. All right, so Curtis, what do you do besides making pipes and YouTube videos?
I don't think I do anything besides that. Well, no, I teach. That's my job. Um, I also am doing some work starting soon with a facility that does rehab and mental health counseling for first responders that are going through substance abuse and mental health issues, because that's something that it's important to me because of my time in law enforcement. I, like most people that have gone through either fire service, law enforcement, or people that have served in some sort of combat, you have a little bit of that lingering mental damage that doesn't really go away easily. And there's a machismo thing, and the women are just as guilty of the machismo, but there's a machismo thing that military guys have, police, fire, all those first responder type of people, where we ignore those things until something really shitty happens.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and so at
I
this,
didn't know you did that. That's
yeah, well,
really cool.
because they helped me out a lot, because I had my own little mini meltdown where, it was like all those things that that build up that you ignore kind of just blew up. Because when I left law enforcement, it changes you. And that's one of the things the critics don't understand or don't care. um and my temper would just be out of control. And I mean, I was never violent towards any people, but like I could fly off the handle at nothing. Like it would be just like the silly argument over the dishes or something, and I could just like lose my shot over it. And it just kind of came to a head where, I was having a whole bunch of stress at work because I was the department chair, and being the department chair was like a nightmare job dealing with the other professors. And I was just losing it. And so they helped me a lot. And so now that I'm kind of in a position where I think I can help as well, I'm going to be doing different things for them. But because I'm not a therapist, I'm not like, but it's something that I'm really looking forward to doing. And I'll just be doing some part-time stuff for them. I think, 15 or 20 hours a week, something like that.
As if
depending
you
on
don't
my
have a
school
full schedule
schedule.
already.
Yeah,
Um,
but that's kind of exciting. But as far as other hobbies, I don't have a whole lot. My pipe smoking and pipe making, that consumes a lot of my time, because it was a year ago, like right now, that I started making pipes. And my very first ones were almost exclusively, everything was hand shaped. I didn't have a lathe. I was just using hand tools and a sander and using like a factory stem and just trying to shape it to the pipe, to where now I can do everything with the equipment that I have, but I'm like consuming constantly. And I'm sorry, I'm just like losing my voice today.
you need a shot
Got a
of whiskey.
frog,
You need a shot
but
of whiskey.
I guess, but
Shot. Oh no, that's not
I'm
my thing.
consuming all the time information on trying to improve pipe making.
Right.
There's like a little bit of and I don't want to diminish the term OCD, because I don't have OCD, because I have a close family member that has actual real OCD, but I've been obsessive about, I want to be really good at this, what tools, and just practicing, and so that's been consuming my off time.
Well, I understand that obsession. I've been making hats. I mean, when the pandemic, quote unquote, happened, I was like, what can I do? None of the homeschoolers want to come to my house for homeschool classes. I can't go to school to sub. I can't even go and be a paralegal for the special eds department. I can't do anything to make extra money. So I started sewing. And now I'm like, I mean, I've been sewing for years, but I started selling more of masks and hats and tried to go out that way. And I feel like I'm so not good enough. And people love some of the stuff I've sent them. And I'm just like, oh, it's just not as good as I think that's a problem. A lot of us perfectionists, maybe like you're right, it's not OCD, but some of us perfectionists who want the best product. We don't want to hand a product off to someone with our name on it that isn't like just superb. Um,
No, and there's that, if you have that a little bit of obsessive personality, it
what are
can,
you
it
trying to say?
benefits you.
Are you trying to say
It
I'm obsessive?
Well, it harms us in some ways, but
It
it
does. It
benefits
does.
in others. Because one of the
I
things that it harms you on is when things are not perfect, which, when you're making pipes, honestly, your first year or two, a lot of them suck. They're just like, you're just not really good at it yet, because you have to, it's like that. There's a term for it, and I can't remember right now. Deliberate practice, where they say that for you to be good at anything, you have to do it like, 5,000 times or something like that. And that anybody who's skilled, like whether it's a mechanic, anything, truck driver, your teacher, whatever it is, you're not really skilled at it. So you've done it like thousands of times. And then you finally get to a place where you have skill. Because
Anybody who knows me knows I'm fighting really hard to keep this as an adult conversation. There's only one thing I've done about 5,000 times. I'm just gonna drop that
that's all right.
conversation. I'm gonna let the wheels come off this show on my own. I'm gonna move on to question 2. How did you get into the Y2PC? Like, how did you find it, and what prompted you to start making videos?
Well, I'm like a lot of nerdy geek guys, where I was a huge Lord of the Rings fan. And so that made me interested in pipe smoking, because I never smoked. I never smoked a cigarette. I never smoked cigars. I smoke a cigar once in a while, but it's very rare, because every time I have a cigar, I remember that I don't like cigars. And so then a year goes by and then I don't smoke a cigar again. But so I went to the local pipe store, the local pipe and tobacco place, bought a pipe, bought some tobacco, and just started searching for like how to smoke a pipe right.
So
And
when
then
was this?
found
When was
right,
this?
and
You
then
said?
found Mutton Chop and all those guys, and matches. And one of the really cool things about John Harden, Matches 860, is, he had this big channel, where he was just such a, like, everybody who's into this YouTube pipe community, everybody knew him. Pretty much everybody would follow and watch his videos. But he was very warm and kind when you would contact him, even though he had no idea who you were. So like I emailed him before I started my channel and just asked for advice and asked him questions. And he was just wonderfully helpful and encouraging. And then once I started my channel, I remember just thinking, oh, how cool that is that he actually mentions your name. Because he would be like, oh, hey, that's, because my name at the beginning was Law and Smoke, and he was like, oh, it's Law and Smoke. And you're like, oh, that's so cool. But that was kind of the path to get into it. And then my channel isn't really pipe smoking. I mean, it is a little bit, but it's just all over the place.
What year was that you first started watching Matches and everybody?
Like 2018 or 20? I guess I could look up my YouTube channel and see when it started, but I think it was like either 2018 or 2019.
All right, so while you're looking that up, I am going to do a bowl call. I don't have anything to ring. I can't be a part of the Nashville Mafia. I guess I failed.
Because where's my oldest video? Yeah, 3 years ago was my first video.
So you and I have been involved about the same amount of time. That's pretty stinking awesome. But you've been smoking a pipe longer than me, that's for sure.
Well, because I remember you kind of at the very beginning when my channel was extremely small. And I remember you from the very beginning. So I think we kind of started close to the same time.
We did. And the couple that got me involved no longer do couple type videos. And I absolutely adore them both. And I wish they would contact me, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm going to do a bowl call real fast.
The Peaches?
Yes.
They were fun.
They were fun. And they're still just amazing people. And I must have offended them because they won't contact me back. And I've known her since I was 13. So
oh wow.
That's rough.
That kind of sucks. But, yeah.
And I'll publicly say it right now. Whatever I did, Anna and Martin, please tell me so I can fix it. But anyways, we'll move on. I am trying.
What was that?
My neighbor is got a crotch rocket.
Going back and forth.
They like to roll around the neighborhood sometimes. But I am trying bacon old fashioned for the first time, and I'm trying it in a cob because I don't know if I'm gonna like it or if it's going to ghost. So that's what I'm smoking. What are you smoking today?
I'm smoking my Elizabethan mixture jug, and there's a little bit of Bayou Morning Flake in here because I'd opened up some Bayou Morning Flake that I'd had aging, hoping that it would mellow out. It didn't. I mean, or if it did, I don't know, but it's just too strong for me. I love the Bayou Morning, the regular cut, but the flake, because that's something about, how that flake is made where it just kind of intensifies it a little bit, because it was just too strong. Every time I would smoke it, I'm like, this, and not nicotine wise, just the perique, the spiciness of it was just too much. So when you mix it with three, I think this fits about 3 tins, then it just kind of blends in. But that's what I do. Pretty much any other, this jar is what I smoke out of all the time. And I just keep adding stuff. I'm kind of a boring tobacco guy. I know there's like a lot of people have like a million blends and they try all these different things. I've tried a bunch of stuff and I've kind of figured out what I like. And that's it. Like I got my friend Ben who lives just in the town next to me in Fullerton, and he comes over, every so often, and we sit and smoke a pipe. And he always wants me to try, oh, can you try this, try that? What do you think of this? I don't really want to try it.
You know
Because
that,
I
and that's
don't.
no, that's
And
perfectly fine. I hate it when people are like, oh, you need to try all this stuff before you settle. No, if you like what you like, you like what you like. It's like, you know,
well, and I do try other Virginia Perique blends and other just Virginia blends, but I kind of found that that's what I like. And he's one of those guys. He has a really wide range of likes, and he's a pipe guy where he likes to collect pipes, but he's much more of a tobacco guy because he has a much more heightened sense that I don't like. Because he'll, when we're sitting there smoking, and he'll be like, oh well, because it's got a Balkan, it's got this, it's got that, and he's very good at figuring out like what any blend is. You don't have to tell him; he'll figure it out.
yeah,
I can't do that. I can't.
people like that blow my mind because I taste things, but my palate in my mouth is so much different than like being able to like smell something. Like my nasal ability is much higher than my tongue sense. But I do have to say, I'm enjoying this. I don't know why people don't like bacon old fashioned. It has
That's the
kind of
isn't that
it
the
has
one Matt just did the hilarious video on?
oh I have to go back and look at that. But I'm having a little bit of water and whiskey in my crafty
Woohoo!
biatch cup. One of my best friends of all time, Charlotte. Shout out to Charlotte if you're watching. I have a lot of friends that don't smoke pipes that watch my videos and laugh at me because I'm a goober. She got me this cup, and I just love it. And I'm drinking some whiskey. And the first taste I had of it after having some of this bacon old fashioned, it's so bizarre because I usually drink whiskey with ice and a splash of water. Skip will drink it straight. He sips on a double shot for like an hour. Me, I have to have my ice, I have to have a splash of water. And just now, and somebody said that to me last night, that it has a flavoring of an old fashioned, like a cocktail
Mhm.
old fashioned. And I just got that flavor. So that's kind of cool.
To quote a Marine sergeant major that I used to have, anytime someone would cough in a formation, he would yell, "Kill the leukemia section." And then, somebody would, we didn't want to say it, but there was one guy that would whisper, "Leukemia is a blood disorder." And we would all kind of giggle a little bit and try not to laugh because he was not a guy to be trifled with. He was he was the stereotypical Marine Corps sergeant major, and no, if you would have made a joke or something, it wouldn't have gone over well. But when
That's
you're on
funny.
Camp Pendleton, where I was stationed, and it's 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning when you're going to go do a run in the winter, it's cold and people would cough, but he would have none of that. No coughing.
No coughing.
Marines don't cough. You're like, oh,
Uh,
okay, sir.
I talk really fast sometimes, and so I'll like go to take a breath, and there's still moisture in my mouth, and then I inhale it in my lungs. I'm like, ah. So I apologize. Anybody who watches the channel knows I do that often, and usually Skip takes up for me. He takes up the slack usually, but he's off the shore in Alaska doing his second love. If he's not in my arms, he has to be in or on top of water because that's his second love, is being on the water. All right, I think I'm gonna move on to the next question. This one is gonna maybe rock the boat a little. Um, in this community, I have noticed that a lot of people, not all, not 100%, but I'd say a good 93%. I don't know where I got that that number, but tend to agree to disagree. But I believe that right now in society as at large, and you being in California, I probably see it more firsthand than some of us maybe in West or East Texas or other really conservative states. But I think there is a huge breakdown right now in society at large. I talked to my kids the other night and they said, why do you have to be, why does your skin color or your sexual orientation or religion have to be in the forefront? Doesn't it matter about content of character? And I went, thank goodness. I must have done something right with my children. So I want you to, if you'd like, you can tell me skip it if you want, but I want you to elaborate because I've seen on some of your videos how you feel about these snowflakes and extremists who are just trying to take away all our rights. Um, why is the world on fire right now, Curtis? And what can we do as a community to start the conversation to try to like steer people away from that
Well, and
fire?
I think within like whether it's the YouTube pipe community or your local pipe club, because I participate in two pipe clubs, an LA County one and an Orange County one. And in both of those places, we have a wide range of people with different beliefs and we talk like human beings because I hate to sound like, where, oh, you're like the old guy that back in my day, this is how things were.
But
But
back in our day, we
honestly,
had punk rock and we had alternative, and we didn't care what anybody was or said or did. We had the beginning of rap was in, and I hate
well,
to say that, but society shows itself true colors in the music. You're in my
I
generation
think,
is not that old timey.
and punk rockers are today's libertarians.
Yeah, Skip's a
Because when
libertarian.
you actually talk to a lot of the punk rock people that are actual, like, they're mostly libertarians because they believe in freedom and they believe in the government not telling you what to do. And we've had a switch now where the cool kids are the ones that want government authority, because that's the dominant culture, the dominant left culture. But one where this has started is, and as a college professor, a teacher, I was a high school teacher first. I think that the education system has done a massive, it's been very well coordinated, that they have been promoting a strong left-wing agenda and not a Democrat agenda, not a Republican agenda, because it's not really Democrat Republican. Because if we go back to like the 80s and 70s, yes, did Democrats and Republicans fight? Oh yeah. Were they mean to each other? Oh yeah. Did they, and I'm talking about the politicians, they, say horrible things, slander each other? Yes. But there was a common consensus that America was a good place to live. It was a great country. And even though there was flaws, nobody's saying it was like perfect. No, there was problems, but that we just kind of had different ideas on how to solve those problems. Somebody who was more of that conservative Republican had that Ronald Reagan model of it should be more limited government. And if you were more of the Bill Clinton or the Walter Mondale from that era, you believed that maybe government, the welfare system, and you believed that that was the solution, but you didn't call the other side evil.
Yeah,
Evil.
exactly. Exactly. Go
Where
ahead.
now, if you're of the opposing political belief, you're somehow an evil person. And that is perpetuated through social media, so it's kind of like a perfect storm, I think, between a big leftist agenda in education. And what's nice is being kind of the libertarian conservative guy on a very liberal college campus, I get thanked by students regularly. I have students that say to me, and I teach in East Los Angeles, so my student population is overwhelmingly Latino, and a large
Easily. Oh, I remember that song.
percentage are first generation immigrants. And I also have, because part of our population comes from Monterey Park, which Monterey Park is the city in the United States that has the highest percentage of Chinese population outside of China. It's the highest percentage. So I have a lot of
Really?
Chinese
I
students.
didn't know that. That's
Yeah, it's a
cool.
very interesting city. And so I have a lot of those students. I get a lot of immigrants that are or foreign students from China, and I get students regularly saying, "Thank you for being like an open-minded professor. Thank you for like, not pushing an agenda, like you're just teaching the class." And whenever I say something that's, let's put it in the air quotes, political, I'm one of those teachers that I say, hey, this is my opinion. Here we're talking, because when we talk law, and you're talking about, law or law theory, things like that. Sometimes I have to say, well, this is my, like, because I talk about, like, okay, what's factual, because I repeat something that's kind of like, it's become a Ben Shapiroism, but I tell students all the time that in criminal justice, it's facts only. And I don't care about your feelings. Your feelings don't matter, because it's what you can prove in court. You can think all day long, well, I think that guy's guilty. I feel he did it. It doesn't matter. What can you
Amen.
prove? What evidence do you have? What facts support your conclusions? And that's all you can have. But we have now a whole branch of the education system that believes that the feelings are the most important thing.
Like all the way down into elementary school, where it used to be sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Get to work. I was fired from a district in a liberal state, Colorado, for telling the kids to shut up and sit down. No, shut up and sit down. It's time to work. And that was public school. It was middle school. I'm more of a rough and tough tumble, almost adult high school kids. It's like, don't knock me out. I won't knock you out. You want to cuss? Here's my cuss jar. Go ahead, say the F bomb, but that's $1. So I get that. I feel, and I just want to state this, I feel like the up and coming youth doesn't understand that if they want to cancel someone else's right to say something, eventually their rights to say those exact things to cancel other people is going to be canceled. I don't understand that.
Well, the cancel culture definitely snaps back on people. But one of the things that I've learned from watching, and I know, because I know at some point I'm going to have, my students are pretty good, but I'm going to have a student in one of my classes that's going to be like, oh, I hate Professor Walker, and they're going to like try to, I don't know, do something. But one of the things I've learned is you don't bend a knee to the cancel people. Not at all. And so if anybody says, oh, Professor Walker, you said this and it's insulting and I'm upset, my response is going to be, I'm not sorry. I mean, if I said something offensive, but I wouldn't, I don't say, like, I'm not going to say something that's actually racist. But see, in this weird world we live in, if you were to say, hey, you need an ID to vote, well, that's racist. What? I mean, that's insane. It should be a given that you have to prove who you are to vote in this democratic republic, because it's important who's elected. And yet that's it's racist.
No,
it's white liberals that say that. It's
ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, because I was one of 4 white cousins in a huge group of cousins, and the rest of them were native looking, very, very dark skinned and black. And my dad was the only one in the family who married an Irish girl. And she was only second generation Irish as well. So our white family wasn't even here when slavery was an option or was legal. And I've had issue with the fact that people call me stuff. And I'm like, let me talk to let me ask people. So I go to my cousins who are all black, and I'm like, they're like siblings, because we grew up hanging out all the time. Almost every day we were with our cousins here in El Paso every day. They were like siblings. And I've asked them some of these questions. I'm like, really? Do you think this? Do you think that? And they're like, no, we've never. The one racist thing that they said has been said to them the most is that they don't know how to get an ID because of their skin color. They're like, Stephanie, you've been in more trouble than we have. You have done more ridiculous things than we have, and we're black. We don't get in trouble. We have IDs. We've probably voted more times than you.
It's one of the silliest arguments, because as a police officer, my job was to ask people right for their ID. I did that all the time. You pull people over. Can I see your license, registration, insurance? I would stop people on the street. And where I worked, I was a cop in Tucson, Arizona, and I worked on the west side of Tucson. And that little area was kind of like crack central back in the 90s,
Oh, wow.
where like when I was in training, one of the officers said, he joked, you can throw a dead cat in any direction and you'll hit a crack dealer, because people were on the street and you would drive down the street in your police car, and in one block you could see 5, 6, 7 crack dealers out on the street selling dope. And when I would go and ask people for an ID, the only people who didn't have an ID card were people with warrants. Everyone else has an ID card.
Convenient.
Right, because those are the people that would tell you, oh, you ask them their name and they'd be like, oh, I'm Joe Joe Garcia. And you'd be like, really, Joe Garcia? Yeah, what's your birthday? 8/13. They're just making it up, right? Or they're giving you their brother's information and then you figure out who they are. But my experience was people who don't have warrants have an ID. If they don't have a driver's license, they have a state ID. And it doesn't even matter if they're not from this country, because when you're in Tucson, Arizona, honestly, it's border territory, right?
It's so true. It's so true. Even natives on reservations, that's the thing they do when they turn 15 or 14, or in girls' cases, 13, they go get their tribal ID. As soon as they're able to drive, they get their state, driver's certificate, and then they get their driver's license. I mean,
Southern Arizona, it's reservation all over. All around us is reservation. Everybody on the reservation has an ID. Every time I encounter Native Americans, which we encounter a lot in Tucson, they never are like, I don't have an ID. No, they have their tribal ID. And they have a state ID. Most of them do. And then
I have several IDs. Which one do you want?
And then in Tucson, one of the apartment managers joked with me one time. She says, she goes, oh, if La Migra comes here, I'm not going to have any residents, because like the entire complex was mostly people that are illegal and undocumented. They still all have IDs, because it's very common in Mexico. Everybody has a voter ID. Mm-hmm. And so that's the ID that would be provided. You would ask somebody, oh, do you have an identification? And you'd ask them, ¿tiene identificación? And they would say, sí, and they would pull out their Mexican ID. And it says right on it, Mexican voter identification. So if Mexico can require voter identification, why can't the United States?
Exactly. And
is it racist in Mexico because Mexico has voter ID, and pretty much everybody you encounter that's a Mexican citizen, if you ask them for their ID, they're going to produce the voter identification card.
Yeah, that's what's so bizarre, because in my life, I've encountered, I guess you'd say, picking on and whatnot, because I look very white for being a girl that's mixed, living in a Hispanic and Black community of El Paso, Texas, which is where I grew up. But it was always really funny to me, and nobody ever ignored me or tried to fight me because of my skin color. It was because my mouth, because of things I said. And I never got in trouble with the police, except for when I was acting like a fool. And my cousins, it's the exact same thing. My family, my friends, anybody I know. I have never encountered true racism until this last 12 months. And I'm outside in my backyard, and my neighbor's son, I went over about 2:30 in the morning on a Wednesday night. It was like the 6th or 7th time he'd been playing music on a weeknight past 2 o'clock in the morning. So I went over there and asked him to turn the music down because the kids had to go to sleep. And he started cussing at me in Spanish like I didn't understand, because I grew up here, and telling me that I was a racist white cracker, not knowing anything about me, telling that. And when I finally called the police and woke Skip up, and the kids were all up listening to the stuff, and he was outside yelling at us outside in our yard, I was like, all I did was, as a neighbor, go ask you to turn your music down on a weeknight. I had never been seriously called out racially, and I think that upset me more than any physical fight I ever got in, because growing up here, I learned Spanish because I had to. My grandmother spoke English and Spanish. My grandparents were Native. My mom's side was Irish. I grew up in this area, and then he yelled at me, "Get out of our town, cracker." And I was like, what? I'd never encountered racism like I did this last year.
Because
And
you're a
that
weta.
blows my mind. Blows my mind. All
Um,
right. So,
well, I was gonna tell you one more thing. I'm one of the things that in our intro to administration of justice class we teach is we have a whole section on on kind of like an intro to criminology and understanding crime. And one of the criminological theories that's out there has to do with like crime that occurs because different groups are mixing together, like it's not homogenous in a neighborhood anymore, and one group is coming in and displacing another, and it causes tension. And whenever we talk about that, I talk about the local neighborhoods where we're at, because one of the neighborhoods really close to the campus is called Boyle Heights. And Boyle Heights is it's not technically East LA, it's an eastern city of Los Angeles, but not East LA. Because East LA proper is next to there.
yeah, but every
But
time I hear East LA, I have to giggle because I think of Cheech and Chong, who
I
I
know
grew
that's what
up on.
everybody thinks of, right?
I love
Um,
Cheech and Chong. They're like my favorite.
but Boyle Heights, over the 100 years, has transitioned. It was a Jewish neighborhood. There was a Russian community.
Oh,
There's a lot of
wow.
Japanese, because right next door is an area they call J-Town, the Japanese area, like pre-World War II, early 1900s, with Japanese immigrants to that area. And there's still like a Japanese cultural center and stuff there. And then the neighborhood became overwhelmingly Latino. And then now there's a transition where there's a lot of white people moving into that neighborhood now. And one of my students, so we use that as a demonstration to talking about how it's caused problems, because during each transition period, there's people culture clash with each other. And so right now it is because there's a lot of white people moving into Boyle Heights. And one of the students, she was just hilarious. She goes, Mr. Walker, she goes, every time I see white people in my neighborhood, and she was like really quick to go, I don't mean you, Mr. Walker, like you're okay. She goes, but I see white people in my neighborhood and I think, what are you doing in mi barrio? And I was like, did you really just say that? And she was like, well, she goes, there's lots of white people moving into my neighborhood and nobody likes it. I'm like, wait a minute. Did you listen to what you just said? Like, listen to it. And she's like, and the rest of the class is kind of like laughing a little bit, and other people are getting it. Cause I'm like, now let's just change what you just said. I live in Orange County. There's a lot of Hispanics moving into my neighborhood and nobody likes it. And then she was like, oh, because she's been conditioned to think that her having prejudice isn't prejudice, that it's only racist if it's a
Coming from
Caucasian person.
coming from someone that has light colored skin.
Right. And so
My
then,
kids told me last night, Mom, but you are white. And I'm like, no, I'm polka dotted. I'm
well,
polka
and
dotted.
even in that, she wanted to like to cover herself. What she said to me was, but Mr. Walker, you're okay. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
so
no,
because
doesn't
she
matter.
knows in her core that that's not right. And so that was the discussion we had. And I have almost that same discussion every semester in AJ1, because there's usually at least one student from Boyle Heights who will tell me, yeah, we don't like all this gentrification. We don't like, that. And then there's because then usually what happens is there's an internal discussion in the class, and I'll have students discussing it with each other. And I had one girl that she was also really hilarious, because she was saying, I really like the white people that live next to me. She goes, they're really nice. They barbecue a lot. And you know what I mean? She's just,
Oh,
it's just like innocent of like an 18-year-old saying, oh, well, there's a lot of barbecuing, you white people barbecue a lot. I'm like, okay.
okay, I'm gonna tell
I
you.
think lots of people barbecue.
Yeah, yeah. The
But in
first,
her experience, that isn't true, because in her experience in her neighborhood, the food preparation is a little different. And so seeing people out barbecuing ribs and all that, she's like, oh, that's new.
I have to tell you a quote that I first heard from my Irish 95-year-old grandfather. I was his 50th birthday present. He was 50 when I was born. He was in World War II and in the Korean conflict. He was an Army, not admiral, but right below admiral.
Wow.
And he always jokes about how he could have been an admiral. And then he was a professor also. And he came here and he was first generation on that white side, the Irish side. And the first time I heard this quote, it was from him when I was probably about 18 years old. He said, you know what? If you're not liberal when you're young, you have no heart. But if you're not conservative when you're old, you have no brain. And I know he wasn't the first one to coin that phrase, but I will
Winston
forever,
Churchill.
yeah, and I will forever consider my grandfather one of the most amazing people, even though sometimes he can be bigoted because that was his generation. He was like, no, you don't interbreed, is what he said, with other races, but you accept other races and you love other people. You want to help people when you're young, but when you're older, you understand that helping people is don't give them the fish, teach them how to fish. And that didn't strike me until I had my own children. How do you come about that knowledge with all these young people who have been given all these fish? How do you do it?
Well, I'm going to say one of my proudest things as a parent is that my son, who really struggled in high school, he was not athletic, he didn't participate in a lot of the stuff, but he's going on 20 now. He works, he goes to school, he bought himself a car that he paid for himself with cash, no car payment, he has no debt. He's got probably about 15 grand or so in the bank because he gets his check, he works at a grocery store, he gets paid pretty decent for what he does, works really hard, and he saves his money. He still goes out. He goes out with his friends. They go to the movies, they go to In-N-Out Burger, they do all the teenage, 20-year-old stuff, but he's responsible. And I'm like, wow, because I have so many of my friends who their kids, and sometimes I'm thinking of one friend in particular where the kid was like, the star athlete kid in high school, he did, but then now he sits around the house, doesn't work, smokes pot, all this stuff, and they're like pulling their hair out trying to get them to do something. And there's sometimes that mental block, well, because you keep providing him with everything, so why should he go out and get it?
If you give, they're not going to ever learn to make it themselves.
Which right there, that's socialism. And we're seeing it right now in the United States with the unemployment, where anybody who's working right now, and if you're working in any industry that needs temporary employees, seasonal employees, you have entry-level employees, you're having a very difficult time attracting them because the government is just giving people unemployment indefinitely and giving that unemployment bonus. My dad is in his 70s and he works at an auto parts place as a delivery driver because he wants to work. He's retired technically, but he needs something to do to keep him busy. He doesn't want to sit at home and play PlayStation, right? He doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, right.
But we have a whole bunch of people now that are perfectly content. They're not disabled, because that would be one thing. And that sucks. I've been disabled. I have an artificial hip. I've had 6 surgeries on my hip, and I've been the person that was out on disability for quite a while.
Am I allowed to count on my roller derby,
yes,
injuries to keep me home?
But it sucked. It sucked being at home. This whole pandemic for me as a teacher has sucked, teaching on Zoom and being at home. I like to go to work. It actually, to me, it's like normal that it's satisfying.
It's been bizarre because it's the first time in my life I've realized, I really actually like leaving the house or having like an actual job, because it gives me something outside of, I don't have to raise chickens to survive my kids. I don't have to wash clothes by hand. I don't have to sew everything and make the cotton into fabric. I don't have to do those things like they did in the old West times. So I need to go out of the house and work or have a work that's not just cleaning the house. Although I love being a housewife, totally like up to old school feminist. Do what you want, stay home if you want, let your man take care of you, get the job, take care of your man. I don't care. I don't care what you do as a feminist. I'm old school feminist. Do what you want, equal pay for equal work. I get that.
Right.
But the majority of women do want to stay home with their kids. Like that's just part of our
Oh,
makeup.
don't say that. Oh, we're going to cancel you.
Oh, I'm in trouble. I'm canceled. I like being a housewife, but I also do enjoy being able to go and work or have a classroom in my house and do stuff.
Well,
all
my
right,
set.
Last question.
Sure.
We're gonna make it really hard for you right now.
Okay.
All right, this is the hard question. Curtis, you ready?
Okay.
Does your spouse, wife, significant other care for your pipe smoking? And if she does or doesn't, irrelevant, which pipe tobacco is she like the most okay with or actually kind of likes?
None.
Oh,
She's like any. So when I'm smoking a pipe, I'm by myself. I mean, other than if I have like the rare occasion that I have somebody come over or I go to somebody's, but she doesn't like any of it. She doesn't like the smell of it, but she still is supportive. She's bought me a pipe, for Christmas or whatever.
that's a good woman
and
right there. She don't
and
like
she's glad that like I have a hobby, right?
All I can
And
say is that there's not a lot of spouses. I don't care if it's a male spouse or a female spouse. There are not a lot of spouses who are non-smokers who are supportive of this hobby. But I gotta say, you have to find one, even if it's something you don't like to smoke, find one that she likes to smell. That'll make her happy.
you know what? I've smoked aromatics. She doesn't like it at all. Because even like a nice aromatic.
Not even Eileen's dream. What's wrong with it?
No, because then if we're sitting in the backyard or something together, we constantly have to adjust our position so that the smoke is not blowing anywhere in her direction because she just hates it.
Oh,
And
that's funny. All right,
yeah.
Curtis, I hate to interrupt you, but I want to leave it open I mean, we went way over the 30 minutes I was expecting to go, but it was just such a fun conversation. I want to ask anyone in the YouTube chat room, do you have any questions for Curtis that aren't going to take more than, a yes or no 5-second answer? Because if you guys ask him, we might bust in on the virtual.
Well, and while we're waiting for a question, if any pops up, I'm going to tell you my 17-year-old daughter has gone to like therapists and stuff over the years. And every therapist was a female and they all had babies and left. And my daughter, we were trying to find somebody for her to go see. And she was like, she has a list of questions. She's like, are you of childbearing years? Are you now pregnant or intend to get pregnant? And we're like, you can't ask that stuff. But she's like, I don't want any more therapists to go have a baby and run off.
I think that's why my most of my gynos are dudes. Not because they like to look down there to check for, what's going on if you got cancer or nothing, but they tend to stay in that career because it pays well and they don't get pregnant and leave when they want to. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I've known women who have had babies and then let other people raise their child, and that's their choice and that's their happiness. That's great. Awesome. But most males stay in their career choice. They don't leave to rear children, which is why people don't understand that women can and do make just as much, sometimes more, than men.
And that is a big part of the wage gap issue is longevity. And we're someone like my wife was very successful as an accountant before we had kids. My wife worked for the University of Arizona. She rose up to be even an interim director for a while of a department and made more money than I did when I was a police officer. And I used to always joke she was my sugar mama. And but she left and quit because she wanted to be home full time with our kids. And she's only gone back to work now. She's a teacher's aide at the high school. even though she's got a college degree, she could probably go do something different. She's an aide, a part-time aide, because that works for her. It works to go for 3 hours a day, and then she can still do home stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm down. Like I said, I'm an old school feminist. If you like staying at work and making your man stay home, more power to you. If you like going home with your kids, more power to you.
And
And
if she
again,
made a pile of money, I'd be happy staying
we have a
home.
question. We have a question, Curtis. What is the favoritist? Okay, let me read it so I don't like mess it up. What is the most favorite pipe that you have made?
My favorite pipe that I made, I sold to a guy named Eric who lives here in the Orange County, LA County area. And we've hung out and smoked pipes together a few times. I've sold him a couple pipes, but it was one of the first pipes that I made, and it was a freehand, and it was an odd shape. I'll put a picture of it maybe on Instagram or something later. And even my wife, who's not really, I mean, again, I told you she's not into pipe smoking at all. She's like, oh, I wish you would have kept that one. That one was so pretty. Because, most people, like, I got a rack of little inexpensive shop pipes that I'm working on right now. And most people like your traditional billiard
I'm a little
shapes.
disappointed that you didn't say the one that Skip bought from you, because he loves his poker from you.
Oh, well, thank you. And I like making the poker shape.
Your favorite pipe. Come on.
But I like those freehand type Danish style freehand pipes, like the pickaxe and those kind of shapes like that. They're the most fun to make, but there's like a limited pool of people that want those. I mean, there are people that want them because every one of those that I've made, someone's bought, but they can kind of sit for a while, where when you're making a more traditional pipe shape,
yeah,
someone will buy that right away. But those, and I think if I ever get to a point, because right now I'm just building and learning and trying to grow and get the equipment.
Gary's being dirty. All right, Gary did say same issues here. Women don't get the same jobs as men and get paid less. Gary, that's not what I was saying. Women in the United States can get the same jobs as men, and they get paid the same as men, sometimes more. They choose to go and rear children and raise families. So in the United States, I do not feel like women have any.
Well, and being in education, Stephanie, you could probably attest to this. In today's world, the most of the leadership in education is women.
Exactly.
It's far more common now that your principals, assistant superintendents, director of this, director of that. And when I worked for Department of Education, that was one of the jobs I had, is I was a curriculum writer at the Orange County Department of Ed, and I got to travel, and it was nice. I stayed in nice hotels, courtesy of the taxpayers. But because we did conferences and we did different things. I sat at dinner one night, and we had a big table. There was like 15 people at the table, and they were all directors of programs, superintendents. I was the only man, the only one. It was all women, and they razzed me all night. And the one lady, she's a superintendent of a big school district. She was saying, "Oh, Curtis, you should come work for me." She goes, "I had a man work for me once. I need one of those again." And
that's where the up and coming generation cannot stand to be razzed. It's like, you know what? You're allowed to be joked and picked on. And if you are being picked on, you're probably accepted in the group. So get over your pansy ass, excuse my French, self. All right,
because I knew she was actually saying true, that if I ever had a job if there was an opportunity, she would hire me because she liked me. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said stuff like that.
All right, we have one more question for you, Curtis, and then we've got to log off because the Virtua Pipe Club is already going live. So Stratman wants to know, did you ever get the grape tobacco you didn't want to pay for?
Yes, somebody emailed me, and they're going to send me a little sample of it, because I wanted to try that grape, but I just can't. I cannot write a check for it.
Yeah, I'm curious too, but I don't want to pay for it.
No, but I'm just curious. So yeah, someone is sending me some.
I actually am very pleasantly surprised. A lot of people said bacon old fashioned. No, oh my God, it's hell. I'm actually pleasantly. I even had a little pipe from Sea Smoke Pipe Eric Weaver of Carter Hall loaded in case I couldn't smoke this. And I'm actually pleasantly surprised. So it just goes to show you everybody's palate's different. You may like the Captain Black grape and you might want to buy it,
I
Curtis.
don't know.
Also, okay, my last question. What is your favorite all-time artist of wood burning that created a wood burning of you and your wife who's 45 and lives in Texas? Who is she?
That would be Stephanie Kane.
Yeah, correct answer. All right, you guys, it is past our time. Curtis, thank you so much for joining me. I
Oh,
so
thank you, Stephanie. I
my
appreciate it.
YTPC, a presenter in my interview chat. We have several more to come once a month. Up until December, we have several people lined up. Curtis, thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun, and anytime. And if somebody cancels at you the last minute, just send me a message and I'll jump on and hog your airtime.
I might make your wife come on and tell me about how much she hates your smoking.
She will not. You will never ever see her in a video because she wants no part of it.
All right. Well, yeah, I get that. Get that. All right, you guys,
thank
everybody
you.
on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. We love you. We appreciate you. It is okay to disagree. It is okay to not like each other. It is okay to just do you. Enjoy your smokes, hugs, and cheers. And we will catch you on the flip side.